Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 34th Annual Great Lakes Day. Great Lakes Day is sponsored by Michigan Sea Grant, Michigan State University Institute of Water Research, Department of Fisheries and Wildlife, and MSU Extension as a part of A&R Week at Michigan State University. My name is Angela Scapini, and I'll be your MC for the day. We welcome Jill Bartolotta with Ohio Sea Grant. Ms. Jill Bartolotta is an extension educator and the Emerging Contaminants Specialist for Ohio Sea Grant College Program and the Ohio State University Stone Laboratory. She works with communities to conduct outreach and education about Lake Erie, identify coastal community needs, develop partnerships to foster a collaborative approach to management, and bring science into the decision-making process at an individual and community level. Please welcome Ms. Bartolotta.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the introduction. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you, Cindy and Angela, for putting this all together, and Michigan Sea Grant for hosting. And to all the other speakers, I've enjoyed listening today. I've learned a lot about a lot of topics, so it's been wonderful. So my name is Jill Bartolotta. I'm an extension educator and emerging contaminant specialist with Ohio Sea Grant. And for those of you who maybe have heard of Sea Grant or haven't heard of Sea Grant, we are part of a state-federal partnership with the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration and then the State Land Grant University. So for us here in Ohio, that's the Ohio State University. And there are 34 programs across the country and in U.S. territories, and Sea Grants are based in coastal communities. And through outreach, education, and research, we work with these coastal communities to better manage coastal issues and, through the lens of sustainability for future generations. Also, what's really cool about our program is we manage and operate Stone Laboratory. This is an island research station in Lake Erie. Most people don't know this, but we have islands in Lake Erie. And students can come here to take courses. We have visiting researchers. We do a field trip program for middle and high school students, as well as public tours. And it's just a really great place. So if you're ever visiting Ohio, I encourage you to come to the islands. We'd love to have you. So today I'm going to be talking about marine debris and the Great Lakes. So this is the definition from NOAA. Nice long definition, but really to break it down, it is human-generated items, so trash, that are accidentally or intentionally placed in water environments. And here's just an example of one of our beaches along the lake in the springtime, after we've had some north winds and all of that trash has blown into our beach areas. When beach cleanups are done, we usually collect data, and this data is taken by the Alliance for the Great Lakes, Ocean Conservancy, NOAA. There's so many different data cards out there now, but somebody is looking at all of that and they're letting us know what we're finding on the beaches. And when we look at the litter profile, 96% of what is found on beach cleanups is going to be plastics. And the majority of these plastics are going to be those single-use plastics. So if you look at that picture with all of the gloves, you're going to see things like utensils, bottle cap rings, cigar tips, cigarettes. These are plastics that are designed to be used once and then thrown away. So it's we live in a very disposable, convenience-driven society, and that's why you're going to be finding these things on our beach cleanups. And a study done by Matt Hoffman estimates that about 22 million pounds of plastic enter the Great Lakes each year. So this is going to be those larger pieces of plastic and then your microplastics as well. And unfortunately, about half of these plastics enter Lake Erie, which is where I'm based. And it's just because Lake Erie is a very urban lake. We've got a lot of people, and when you have a lot of people, you have a lot of trash generated. So these are microplastics. I'm sure you've heard about them. These are small pieces of plastic that are going to be 5 millimeters or less in size. So 5 millimeters is about the size of the eraser on your pencil. And sometimes plastics are made to be this micro size. So that's going to be things like those pellets. This is plastic in its virgin form. These pellets then get shipped all over the world, either on boats or trains or tractor trailers. And then these plastics go to facilities that make toys, that make car parts, whatever's made out of plastic, and they melt these pellets back down, add colors and other additives, and that's how you get all of the plastic products. Fragments are going to be larger pieces of plastic that break down into smaller pieces of plastic. And we always say break down because plastic never truly goes away. It does not become a usable nutrient for the environment. So we never want to say decompose because it's not the true process that's happening. And plastic, when exposed to UV, becomes very fragile, and that helps break that plastic apart. And then as erosion, wind, wave action happens, that's how you're going to see those plastics fragment. And they've actually found that plastics fragment more quickly in the Great Lakes than they do in ocean environments. And they think this is because we have much more volatile wave patterns and stuff like that, but also we have a lot more biofouling, and that helps that breakdown process as well. You'll then see films there. Films are going to come from your plastic packaging, so your chip bags, your candy wrappers, but then also your plastic bags from the grocery store. And a lot of times when people think, oh, plastic bags aren't an issue because we don't find them on beach cleanups, but unfortunately we find a lot of them on river cleanups and trees and brush and stuff, or when bags get into larger water environments like the Great Lakes, they actually sink to the bottom. So that's why you may not see plastic bags so much on beaches, but they are still an issue. Then you're going to have your foams. So this is going to come from, your styrofoam cups, those carryout containers. A lot of docks and buoys are made out of foam, and we place those directly in the natural environment. Canada is actually looking at some legislation that would make it illegal for any type of docks for marinas to be made out of a foam material. So that was very exciting to see. And then lastly, you're going to have your fibers. Fibers are going to come from your synthetic clothing. So think fleece jackets, any type of workout gear, polyethylene, polypropylene clothes, also carpets, furniture, anything, like that is going to be made out of plastic fibers. And then also cigarette filters. So that's the number one item we find on beach cleanups are cigarettes. And that filter is actually made out of plastic. It's not a cotton material. And so those contribute to the fiber issue as well. And so how do plastics get into the water? Well, the majority of them are going to be coming off of the landscape. And then when we get large wind or rain events, like what is apparently coming to Ohio today, that's going to put a lot of this trash in the environment. Think about, after trash pickup day in your neighborhood, it looks like, the trash is just everywhere and we're picking it up. So that's how trash gets in. It collects along roadways. We get a rain event. That rain runs that trash to your nearby storm drains. Storm drains do not go to a water treatment facility. They either go directly into a nearby river or directly into the lake. So that's probably why you've seen no dumping stickers or stencils. It's because storm drains, whatever's in them, will go directly into the lake. You will see some litter coming off of boating and recreational and shipping activities. Where we live here in the Great Lakes, we do have commercial fishing, not so much where I am in Lake Erie, but when you get up into Lake Superior and stuff, you're going to see more potential nets and things like that from fishing activities. And then also shipping. Shipping is, we're not really shipping items made of plastics here in the Great Lakes. We're shipping more things like gravel, sand, ore, and stuff like that. But if you go into ocean environments, you've probably seen news articles like the rubber ducks falling off the ship, or Nike shoes, or plastic pellets. And so that is a larger issue when you get into the ocean environment. And when these plastics get into the natural environment, they're very catastrophic for our local wildlife. So this was a quick little study I did with some wildlife rehab facilities here in Ohio to see, are people bringing in animals entangled in plastics? And we found out that yes, this is actually happening, and it's a big issue for animals. So here in Ohio, the number one animal brought in entangled was birds, then it would be mammals, and then reptiles. And when we broke that down by item for entanglement, fishing line is the number one item entangling animals here in Ohio. That's why it's really important if you fish, you avoid cutting your line or you cut as far, down to the hook as you can. Be really mindful of casting. A lot of birds will get entangled in fishing line when it gets caught up on trees or wires and stuff like that. So just be aware of that. Then also net. Net would be any of your sports nets. So, nets around baseball fields, soccer goals, things like that. Something people don't think about, but those are notorious for entangling animals. Also, landscape mesh. That is the plastic mesh that's used for erosion control. You'll either see it as green or sometimes it's clear. This is a really big issue for rodents, but then also reptiles. So reptiles can only move forward on the ground. They cannot back up. So once they get stuck in landscape mesh, it's a really big issue. And so here's a Lake Erie water snake, which is endemic to the Lake Erie Islands. They're not found anywhere else in the world. They used to be federally endangered. They're now just listed as state threatened. And you can see that it was entangled in landscape mesh, and the landscape mesh was in the process of cutting this snake in half almost. And then lastly, you're going to see fishing lures. So those are going to be your, worms and any type of synthetic lures that are used for fishing. So just be mindful of what you're putting down on the landscape because it does affect animals. And then also animals are going to be affected through ingestion. So plastics have been found in every single animal studied, whether it's plankton all the way up to camels. And so it's just problematic because the plastics affect the endocrine system. They can also be carcinogenic. And then plastic is hydrophobic. So plastics don't like they don't like water. So all the other chemicals like PFAS, pesticides, PCBs, heavy metals will latch onto those plastics, and then that has the possibility to get inside a living organism. And plastics have been known to affect the entire behavior pattern of organisms. So reproduction timelines, feeding patterns, their ability to move, and stuff like that. So it can be pretty dangerous when these plastics are found in organisms. So this was a study done out of the Chelsea Rockman's lab. She's doing a lot of work on plastics, and this was one of her graduate students looking at microplastics in Lake Ontario fish. So as you can see, the higher the fish is up in the food web, you're going to see a higher concentration of microplastics, which is a little bit opposite of what Carolyn was talking to us today about PFAS. So very interesting. But then also you're going to see animals that if they're going to be feeding lower in the water column, closer to the sediment, like things like bullhead or suckers, you're going to see an increase in microplastics. And this is because a lot of the plastics that they're finding are going to be these microfibers. And microfibers tend to sink, not all of them, it depends on the density, but you're going to get a high concentration of plastics in the sediment, especially at the base of wastewater treatment facilities. Wastewater treatment facilities, there's been studies where they say 30 to 90%. That's a big gap. So they're not removing everything that's coming out of, your washing machines and stuff like that. And then a lot of that sludge is land applied. So then it just goes back into the environment anyway. So that's why you're going to see, this change between bullhead and shiners and stuff like that. And then, like I said, in the purple there, that's going to mostly be these fibers. They've found that plastics, can get through all organs, fillets, into your brain membrane and stuff. But what these fibers do is they're not finding animals excreting them very well. They found that things like beads and pellets and fragments might be able to be excreted, but the fibers, they just tend to get intertwined in all of the tissue. And they're also finding plastics in our water. This has been something we've known for many years. This is not anything new, but there was a new paper that just came out about the high amount of plastics. Well, they've probably always been there in your bottled water. It's just the second study now looked at nanoplastics. Nanoplastics are much smaller. So of course, there's going to be more of them. And when you look at bottled water, you're going to see about 2 times more plastic in your bottled water versus your tap water. And they think the reason for that is it's just through the process of filling a bottle of water, there's already plastics in that environment. And then when they go to screw that cap on, all of the plastics that is shedding off of screwing that cap on go right into your water. And this is anything in a plastic bottle. This is your sodas, your juices, your teas, anything like that. So just be aware of what you're drinking. And if you can do tap water, filtered tap water, drink things out of cans or glass, you're going to be less likely to expose yourself to all of these plastics. So let's talk about tap water. Especially where I live in Cleveland, we have a bit of a tricky past with tap water, but we actually have wonderful tap water here in Cleveland. And so this is a study that has been funded by Ohio Sea Grant through Dr. John Lenhart's lab out of Ohio State University. And this is Megan, one of his students, and she is looking at how do drinking water facilities remove plastics? Are they removing them? These facilities were never designed to remove plastics. And so she's going all the way down to the nanoplastic level, and she's collecting water samples from various phases of treatment to see, do concentrations change? Do the types of plastics change? And they just did a webinar with us a few weeks ago, and they're finding some very interesting information. And they are finding that facilities are able to remove some of these plastics from your drinking water, even though they're not designed to do that. So that's very encouraging information. And they're still working on this project, and we will be developing a high school curriculum or high school lesson plan based on this results. And we'll hope to, be sharing that next year sometime. All right, so that's basically the issue of plastics in a quick nutshell. But now I want to talk about plastic reduction policies, because we know we're the problem. Humans are the ones using these plastics. And so we really need to focus on changing our behaviors, our policies, and our business practices so that less of these plastics end up in the natural environment. So this was a study that my colleague Scott Hardy and I completed several years ago as Cleveland was preparing for some bag ban legislation. And we just wanted to get some feedback on, do people support these policies? Are people really against this kind of, legislation? And what we found, and if you look at the pie graph, is we found that people are very supportive of some type of legislation, so laws or policies in place that would reduce their free access to plastic bags. And there have been other studies done that show a similar response from communities outside of Northeast Ohio. So that's positive to note. And then on the right, you'll see the other graph, and this is about businesses. So if this were a business just doing it out of their own sustainability practices, reducing a customer's free access to plastic bags. And again, you can see that people are still going to support these businesses, even if they don't get a bag every time they go into the store. And as I said, we have also a very interesting history with bag bans. We did a lot of education in stores. Cuyahoga County has a wonderful bag ban website. If you want to learn more about it, you can scan this QR code. We live in what is called a preemptive state. So that means that at the state level, it is illegal to have a bag ban. So it's basically a ban on bans. So it is illegal for municipalities to prevent stores from offering plastic bags for free. So all of the stores participating in Cuyahoga County's bag ban are doing it out of their own free will. There is no legislative mandate that legally enforces them to do so. And there are many other states that have this, especially in the Midwest. We also worked with some restaurants up on our islands to look at Skip the Straw. Skip the Straw has been going on forever, but is it successful, and do people appreciate it, or do they absolutely despise it? So we worked with the restaurant, and we also did extensive training with their staff, and that's what's been most successful with all of these business reduction programs we've done is we do extensive training with the staff so they understand why plastics are an issue and they can have meaningful conversations with customers instead of just saying, oh, we skipped the straw because it saves sea turtles. That means nothing usually to somebody living here in Ohio. So we did a focus group to get some feedback from our staff, from the staff at the restaurants to see how did the Skip the Straw campaign go. And we found that a lot of the staff changed their own practices and encouraged other people to use less plastics. And what was really wonderful is all of the staff used to use plastic cups while they were at work. All of them now have reusable waters that they refill while they're at work. And so that's, you know, with 50 plus staff people, 1 cup a day adds up. And so that was a huge change that we saw at the restaurant. Also, they said that overwhelmingly customers were very positive about the Skip the Straw campaign. And if a customer did request a straw and the staff explained why they were doing it, the customer would then say, actually, we don't need that straw anymore. And that's because the staff were able to have a very strong, powerful conversation with them. And they were actually able to provide them with facts. And then lastly, financials. A lot of businesses don't want to do this stuff because they're afraid they're going to lose customers. And we found that the restaurant did not lose any business and that none of the staff tips were affected because people didn't get a straw freely in their drink. I will mention, because the restaurant changed to paper straws, there was no cost savings noticed because a paper straws, they are sometimes 10 times more expensive than a plastic straw. So you're not necessarily going to see cost savings because now what you have to buy is that much more expensive. We also developed a trash tote. So this is a education kit that's meant to be taken out and about, beach cleanups, outreach events, wherever you're going, to educate people about the issue of plastics and marine debris. And it's focused on the Great Lakes. We love our ocean friends. They're doing amazing work, but unfortunately, a lot of imagery and a lot of the statistics are from the oceans. And like I said, we need to talk about this issue locally here in the Great Lakes. So this kit is primarily focused on the Great Lakes. And we've given, oh gosh, probably about 70 of these out. Michigan has some, so reach out to Michigan Sea Grant if you're interested. And when we did some feedback, we found that, you know, a lot of the educators who are using these kits really enjoy them. It is increasing their knowledge, but also, you know, who they're teaching's knowledge. And we found that it's best to be used with K-12 audiences at beach cleanups and then outreach events. This is something else we've created because we can do a lot with our individual behavior. So through the OSU Extension Sustainability team, we've created tip sheets. You can download them at this link here. We've got probably about 10 of them, and they're just a one-page sheet with 10 tips on how to phase plastics out of your life. Some of them relate to boating, fishing. One is about teaching sustainability to kids. One is about hosting a party and using less plastic. So if you're looking for really quick, easy things for people to do, please visit this website. You can download the tip sheets. Feel free to use them however benefits you the most. We've also created some videos. So the first one with the kayaks is we created a video for boaters on how they can prevent marine debris while boating. It's a few minutes long. It's really easy. So if you work with boating communities or marinas, feel free to share this with them. And then also very exciting, we were part of a documentary called Ripples of Plastic that talks about the issue of plastics in the Great Lakes. And I'm very excited. I just heard from the filmmaker. They want to take this on tour around the Great Lakes. So I may be reaching out to some of you to see if you would be willing to host this documentary at your sites. Also, cleanups. We do a lot of cleanups. Cleanups are not going to solve the problem. We really need to focus on prevention and reduction, but there's trash and we have to pick it up. And so we've done some behavior change work showing that cleanups are an effective tool for changing behavior. And so I encourage you to keep doing them. And if you're interested in learning how to do a cleanup, you don't know how to get started, We created a video here. Again, it's only a couple minutes long. Feel free to use it. I like to show it to people before I do a cleanup with them, just so they can kind of understand the process and why we're collecting data and weighing the trash and all of that kind of great stuff. And then also with cleanups, we've got some cool new technologies that we've been using, and Michigan Sea Grant up in their Traverse City area is also piloting these technologies. So the technologies were donated, well, the funding for the technology was donated by Meyer to the Council of the Great Lakes region, and then they are working with Sea Grant programs in Michigan, Ohio, and Wisconsin to implement and pilot this technology because it's brand new technology for the Great Lakes. So the one that's in the water, that's called the Pixie drone, that floats along the surface and you remote control it and it zooms around and it's able to remove floating trash down to 3 millimeters. And then the Bee-Bot is the sand skiving device. So it sieves the top 2 to 4 inches of your dry sandy beach, shakes that sand out and then picks everything up. And it can sieve down to 5 millimeters. And both are remote controlled electric vehicles. And we're doing waste characterizations because we want to know, is this equipment effective? And so this is what we're finding. As you can see, it's a lot of cigarettes and cigar tips and these smaller pieces of trash. I don't know if any of you have done a beach cleanup, but I've done, gosh, probably dozens at this point. It's really hard to sometimes pick this stuff up, and it's really annoying too to sit there, you know, in this one little piece of sand and remove all of this stuff. So this equipment goes behind and gets what those larger beak combing rakes leave behind or what volunteers might miss. And so we're finding that it's very, very successful technology. And it's a great outreach tool. You go to the beach and people will come up to you and they're like, what is that? And so we have wonderful conversations with people. And what's really exciting is we were awarded some funding from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law through the Climate Ready Coast program to work with a local technology academy in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. So these are students from underserved, low-income, underrepresented communities in the STEAM disciplines. And we're teaching them how to use these technologies. We're teaching them about the Great Lakes. We're teaching them about marine debris and watersheds and fish and all this kind of stuff. And they've just been wonderful. And some of them are so into it, and I just love it. And so a few weeks ago, we got the Pixie drone in the water for the first time with them, and we had so much fun, you know, scooping ping pong balls up in the pool. And it was amazing how talented these students are at operating this equipment. And we're helping with workforce development because as these technologies come on board, nobody knows how to use them. And so we're trying to train the next generation of these people, of this workforce. And then another project that we're doing in partnership with Wisconsin Sea Grant, again through the Climate Ready Coast program, is Plastic Free Cleveland. This is really going to be focused on working with local businesses and organizations in Cleveland to highlight what they're doing to reduce plastics, to move towards a circular economy, and how can we support each other in these initiatives. So that's all I have. If anyone has any questions, you can contact me at my email here. Or if you're interested in learning more about Ohio Sea Grant or Stone Laboratory, all of that information is there as well. Thank you, everyone.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Bartolotta.
and something that all of us could